Good morning, it's day 14 of our Lent readings for 2021, and today we're going to be looking at 2 Chronicles. Now, we looked at 1 Chronicles yesterday, and we said that these 2 books cover the same sort of time period as 2 Samuel and 1 and 2 Kings. In fact, 2 Chronicles covers the period exactly the same as the books of Kings. It's beginning with Solomon taking over, leading Israel from David and up until the exile. Now, it starts off talking about Solomon's reign, particularly emphasis on the building of the temple. And then when we get to chapter 10, it talks about the division of the kingdom. And in a moment, I want to read from that and the reasons why the kingdom was divided. And that division was not equal. The southern half, which goes on to be known as Judah, only contained 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin. The northern half contained 10 tribes. And they continue with their capital based in Samaria. The southern half continue with Jerusalem. And the book wants to emphasize that some of the kings of the southern half of the kingdom of Judah were actually godly, though not without flaws. People like Jehoshaphat, Hezekiah and Josiah. And the emphasis is for writing to people in exile is that the promises to establish David's throne still holds, because these were all descendants of David. You get to the end of the book and there's the exile, and the last chapter is optimistic. It doesn't say that the people were carried into Babylon in exile and the promise was over. It talks about the land now taking a Sabbath's rest, and then finishes by talking that one day, under Cyrus, Israel will be allowed to come back to the promised land. Now, the bit I want to read is chapter 10 and the reasons why the kingdom was divided. It's largely because Solomon, though Solomon was wealthy, that wealth had not come without any cost to the nation. He had put a heavy burden on the nation, and the people did not want to tolerate that any longer. And in Jeroboam, son of Nebat, they had a ready-made leader. And so when Rehoboam, a similar name, Solomon's son, is proposed king, they have a meeting at Shechem. This is what it says. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone there to make him king. When Jeroboam son of Nebat heard this, he was in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon. He returned from Egypt. So they sent for Jeroboam, and he and all Israel went to Rehoboam and said to him, "Your father put a heavy yoke on us. Now, lighten the harsh labour and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." Rehoboam answered, "Come back to me in 3 days." So the people went away. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. "How would you advise me to answer these people?" he asked. They replied, "If you will be kind to these people and please them and give them a favourable answer, they will always be your servants." But Rehoboam rejected the advice that the elders gave to him and consulted the young men who he had grown up with and were serving him. He asked them, "What is your advice? How would you answer these people who say to me, 'Lighten the yoke your father put on us'?" The young men who had grown up with him replied, "The people have said to you, 'Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter.' Now tell them, 'My little finger is thicker than my father's wrist. My father laid a heavy yoke, I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions." 3 days later, Jeroboam and all the people returned to Rehoboam as the king had said, "Come back to me in 3 days." The king answered them harshly. Rejecting the advice of the elders, he followed the advice of the young men. When all Israel saw that the king refused to listen to them, they answered the king, "What share do we have in David? What part in Jesse's son? To your tents, Israel." So Israel have been in rebellion against the house of David until this day. when you have a big decision to make, take advice from those who are wise, those who have experience, those who have maturity and have developed a character and show discernment. If we only listen to those who are like us, those who will say only what we want to hear, then disaster could await us. It might not be what we want to hear, but sometimes the advice of our elders is what we need to hear. Till next time, have a blessed day.